This is my channel's weekly compendium, ending Monday, October 9th, 2023. Case file number 1301, written by Land Tank. The Missing 40 Minutes. Just a bit of background. No serious mental health problems other than some mild anxiety and depression. I take 25 milligrams of Zoloft, so I don't think I'm tripping or hallucinating. This morning I woke up for work. Left a little earlier than usual because I woke up before my alarm, filled my water bottle, grabbed my access card, and got in my car and drove off. My commute is the same every day, 40 minutes. It's mostly interstate. There's always traffic. While my car is warming up, Subarus, am I right? I pick up an album to listen to for the drive there. I usually make it about 3/4 of the way through an album before I get to work. Every day is a new album. So I did all that. I drove to work. I remember being cut off. I remember being in standstill traffic towards my exit. I remember the album I listened to. I even remember responding to a text using Siri. I remember seeing a type of car I've never seen before in the US. I remember thinking to myself, I'm glad it's not as hot as yesterday. I definitely drove. So I get there to work. I pull into the same parking space I take every day, step out of my car, and lo and behold, I'm still in front of my apartment building. 40 minutes later, almost done with the album I put on. What the hell was I doing? Where did I go? I imagined the entire trip? Creepy file number 121, written by TPE Ein. The mysterious 4:30 a.m. knock. It's funny what the human mind can do. My husband works a weird schedule where he has to be at work at 3 a.m. I wake him up at 2 a.m., get his lunch together, and then go back to bed until my alarm at 5 a.m. I don't always go back to sleep right away because he's wandering around showering and getting dressed and making obscene amounts of noise. He usually leaves right around 2:50 a.m. Then I'm good to go back to sleep. Anyway, about a month ago, I woke back up at 4:30ish on a Friday morning. I swore I heard someone knocking. We have a doorbell camera at both doors, so I checked my phone. No one's there. The kids were in bed with me and the dog was still sound asleep, so I knew it wasn't them. I decided it must have been a dream, but it freaked me out enough that I didn't go back to sleep. He was home for the next 2 nights, no knocking. I didn't think anything about it. Early Monday morning, same time, same place, checked the cameras, nothing there. Kids and dogs all snoring. Repeat for 3 more days. I became more and more convinced that someone was messing with me. But I couldn't figure out why. If someone was really watching the house, they would know that I was alone after 3 a.m. with the kids. It's easy enough to break in, ground level windows all around, and our doors aren't anything special. No reason to expend all this effort trying to get me up and out of bed to open the door, just break in. My irritability was growing as my sleep deprivation increased. I was having a harder and harder time sleeping after 3 a.m. because I was anticipating the knocking. I was mostly just kind of hanging out in bed and waiting. Finally, I decided to just stay awake and catch the person in the act. I set myself up in the living room, iced coffee, TV on, phone in hand, fully upright so I wouldn't fall asleep. Nothing happened. No more knocking. Just an idiot sitting on the couch for 2 hours, losing more sleep. My theory is that I was dreaming of someone knocking the first night, and I woke up mid-dream, unable to distinguish reality from my dream. I didn't have to wake up in the middle of the night the next 2 nights, so I slept better and deeper. He went back to work and the weird dream started again because I wasn't sleeping solidly. The human mind does some crazy things. After, I was able to look at it with a clearer perspective and a few hours of sleep. I realized there was no way anyone could have been knocking at the door. I have a miniature dachshund. He barks at anything. A squirrel farting outside can result in a 5-minute barking frenzy. Knocks on the door cause hysteria. There is no way he would have slept through someone knocking at 4 a.m. I'm an idiot. Bonus file written by Bubisha, the super dog. I was 17 years old and left alone from Thursday to Sunday with our family's dog, who was pretty small and starting to have trouble climbing stairs in his old age. I'd be working every morning while my parents were out of town. Came home from my shift on Friday and everything about the kitchen table was a mess. Napkins were taken out of the holder, all the mail was thrown on the floor, salt and pepper shakers on the other side of the kitchen but together, and one of the chairs pulled far away from the table. Our dog's never done anything like this, and I'd be especially surprised if he was even capable of climbing on top of the table. I reset it all. Saturday, I came back to find the exact same configuration. Don't have the pictures anymore, but every detail was just as I found it the day before. Pretty much the entire night I'm convinced there's gonna be a ghost coming to get me, and I sleep horribly and barely rest for work on Sunday. I left for work and made sure the place was orderly when I left because I knew my parents would be back before I was out of work. When I go on my lunch break, I call my mom and ask about all the details from the past 2 days, and she just goes, "Yeah, why did you leave such a mess?" She didn't get pictures, so I can't verify how similar the mess was, but regardless, I can't believe my old dog would have done that for 3 consecutive days, and I don't even know if he was strong enough to move the chairs or climb on the table. Only time anything like this has ever happened while I was left alone. Case file number 1302, written by Cats Are Cool 0, The Crossroads, where space-time flows differently. So this happened about 5 to 6 years ago. I was driving around with my 3 other friends. I was in the back passenger side seat. No one was drunk or high. We were driving around in a neighboring town to our hometown, which we were all still quite familiar with, while looking for something to do, just talking and listening to music, when suddenly we pull up to an intersection and none of us knows where we are. We had realized we were about a half hour away from where we previously were after driving around a bit to get our bearings. The same song was playing on the radio and hadn't been skipped, and none of us, including the driver, had any recollection of how we got there. A few years later, I was driving in the city that we had gotten teleported to with some family members when I saw the intersection we had stopped at. After begging my mother to go down that road, it led us to a dead end. Anyway, what the hell? Thank you for listening, that's all. Creepy file number 122, written by Cactus Butt. The night we'll never forget. Not really home alone, but when I was little, I remember as my dad was taking us to bed, I ran out first to sneak behind my bedroom door. The plan was to jump out and scare my brother before bed, as my bedroom was just opposite the bathroom, and he had to walk past it to get to his room. However, behind the bedroom door were 2 strange men hiding. One had a beard and long hair. The other I don't clearly remember, but think he was very skinny. The guy with long hair whispered to me to go away, so I calmly went away and slept with my dad. Mom was working nights, and this wasn't uncommon for me, so he never questioned it. I was rightly spooked, and I didn't want to be up on my own, but didn't tell my dad what I saw as I was petrified inside. Straight up thought I'd been told off by some creepy ghost. We were robbed that night. My brother also woke up that night to go to the bathroom and saw the downstairs light on from the staircase. At the time, he thought it was our mother, and would normally, if he got up early, run down and see her. For some reason, he didn't go downstairs that night and instead hopped up in bed with me and our dad too. When my mom came home, the downstairs was trashed and she was terrified something happened to us. She ran up the stairs in a panic and found all of us in bed safe and sound. Home insurance was able to salvage most of the losses, and we got a dog not long after that as a deterrent for thieves, which grew up never having another issue again. So I guess it's not really unexplainable, but a strange and scary story nevertheless. Bonus file written by Real Quick Nope, the day my vertigo foretold of a family tragedy. A little over 10 years ago, I was getting ready for work around 6 a.m., and as I got out of the shower, I was hit with intense vertigo. So bad I actually fell to my knees and had to hold onto the bed to stop from falling over. I had never had vertigo in my life. Former gymnast and avid roller coaster rider. Until this point. Took me about 30 seconds to a minute before it went away, and when I stood up it was like nothing had ever happened. Very odd. Went to work as usual, other than thinking, that was bizarre. The morning started normally. About half an hour into work, around 7:30, my phone rings and it's my dad. He knows I'm at work and he never calls while I'm working unless it's an emergency, so I knew whatever he was about to tell me wasn't good. He tells me that my aunt, his sister, who was a second mother to me, had a massive heart attack in bed this morning, that the EMTs couldn't save her, and she passed away. She died at exactly the time I had my intense bout of vertigo. As a child, I had another weird thing happen. I was about 9 or 10 and woke up out of a dead sleep at 3 a.m. to get a drink of water. This was extremely uncommon for me as a child, as I slept like I was drugged, and usually for 12 to 14 hours at a clip. I never woke up in the night. But tonight I did. I got a drink, peed, then went back to bed. Before I could fall back asleep, our house phone rang. It was the hospital. My grandfather had a massive heart attack and was in the ER, and we needed to get there because they didn't think he'd make it. He survived and lived another 20 years, but later learned that he'd been clinically dead for nearly a minute, and the only way they brought him back was a nurse was literally straddling him and punching him in the chest. She bruised and broke multiple ribs, but he survived, needed a triple bypass, and to quit the pack-a-day of red habit. Again, my grandfather and I were very close, and I was his only grandchild until about 2 years after this event, and I saw him daily, and I woke up at the exact time he died in the ER. These experiences are why I have a strong belief that when we go, there's more to it. I swear I felt them shuffling off this mortal coil. I have no other explanation. Case file number 1303, written by Arisigi, Wedding Rings Beyond This Universe. My wife had taken her engagement and wedding rings off over 2 years ago when she was pregnant and when they started to become uncomfortable to wear. We thought we had placed it in the jewelry box. After about 6 months, when her fingers returned to normal, she went looking for the rings. They were nowhere to be found. We searched extensively throughout the house, including both of us searching all of her jewelry boxes and any other potential places. We would randomly search every few months in the same places again. Last week we looked at the jewelry box, and it was sitting in plain sight. Box both of us had searched extensively over the past 2 years. Where were the rings all this time? We don't have anyone that would be going through these items in our house other than us. Just odd. Bonus file written by Tully and Turtle Terror. Ghosts, gas leaks, and basement secrets. The first house I moved into out of high school while going to college was a very old, very small house in a town that dated back to the Civil War. I lived there with 3 other guys since rents were high, but we made it work. The house is built on a hill and had a small driveway in front with a U-shaped driveway in back. It had a full basement and was owned by someone with multiple rental properties in the area. They told us we had full access to the upstairs, but that they used the downstairs for storage and to never go down there because it was full of their stuff. We never questioned it, because the rent for this particular location for our area was low. We were still technically on campus, but our house was surrounded by other college students so we could have parties whenever we wanted to. Everything was great until we started having unwanted visitors. At first, things were pretty easy to ignore or completely write off. A roommate home by themselves would walk into a room and the lights would be on when they were home alone and hadn't flipped on any switches. Someone else would hear a faucet turn on and off in a room with no one in it. We tried to do what research we could at the time and found that water pressure can cause faucets to do some crazy things on their own, and that power surges can do similar things with flickering lights. Unfortunately, things kept getting stranger. At one point, one roommate who was home alone got out of the shower, looked into the mirror to start shaving, and noticed that someone else stepped out of the shower behind him and left the room. He searched the house, but couldn't find anyone else home at the time. Later on, a different roommate had several items go missing out of his room, including his keys and a pocket knife. He later found them in our microwave. Again, no one else was home at the time. Me, personally, I got home on a day when nobody else was at the house for the next couple of hours in between classes. There was a folding chair on the front porch next to the door, and I had an armload of books. I set the books down on the chair, unlocked, and pushed open the front door. turned and picked up the books, and when I went to walk into the house, the door slammed in my face. I thought the wind had caught the door and went to open it, but discovered that the door had locked itself again, both handle and deadbolt. Last of all, 3 of us were sitting together on a couch watching TV when we heard a loud, heavy thud, as though someone had been dragged off a bed in a back bedroom. All 3 of us later confirmed that we could distinctly hear both footsteps walking through the house as well as the sounds of something heavy being dragged behind. Last of all, the back door opened and slammed shut, even though we were all in the living room and there was supposed to be no one else in the house. A week later, we started to smell gas in the house. We called the authorities in the middle of the night and they searched the house with us, waiting on the front lawn. Finally, they told us that they couldn't find a gas leak and asked us to open the basement. We had never been in there, at our landowner's request, but since the fire department was asking, we opened the garage door. Right in front of us was a Honda Shadow motorcycle with a large pool of gasoline underneath it, where the gas tank had apparently leaked underneath it and the rest of the house. The firefighters saw this and decided to leave, while we were left to look around the rest of the basement. Most of what we found was shelves and shelves of canned vegetables, but in the very middle of the floor, under everyone's bedrooms, was a mortuary table and a second device. I'm still not sure what the second device was. It was cylindrical, with a small viewport on the front door. It seemed to have some places in the back for hoses or pipes to connect to it, although nothing was attached when we found it. It was about the right size for a couple of 2 liters of soda to fit inside. Soon after, we found out that our landowner worked night shifts at a local hospital. Whatever it might have been, we decided that enough was enough and we all decided to move out as soon as our leases were up. I was the last one there, and I promise that the last 7 days I spent there alone are the longest days I've spent anywhere. I am a self-described cynic who doesn't believe in the supernatural, but I can also admit when I have absolutely no explanation for a set of events. I'm sure that some people will have ideas, something to explain everything that happened to me now that many years have passed, but I don't need their explanations anymore. I just accept that being in old houses alone is not a good idea, and do my best to avoid them altogether. Case file number 1304, written by Professor Frogget, the mysterious girl who protects me. The first time I saw her, I was 6. We were playing the opposite of hide and seek. One person hides while everyone else looks, and once you find the person, you hide with them till there's only one person looking. It was my turn to hide, and I chose to hide under the stairs where my dad kept all the camping gear because there were lots of things to hide under, behind, and so on. There was only one person left. With all of us cramped in the room under the stairs, the last person left was sitting on the stairs above us, my brother, and we could hear him yelling in his defeat to get us to surrender. In my hiding spot, I could see the door that led out, and it was cracked a little bit. A girl about my age poked her head in the room and waved at me. I had said out loud, "What's your name?" With no reply, she vanished, which prompted me to follow after her, yelling at her to come back, ultimately giving up our hiding spot. Everyone under the stairs, brothers and cousins, started yelling at me asking what the hell I was doing and who I was talking to. Nobody else had seen her, and we couldn't find her upon searching. The next time I saw her, I had gone over to the neighbor's house to play with the boy my age because they had just gotten a new puppy. The neighboring boy had 8 siblings, Mormons, all boys, and the oldest son had come to visit. He came into the basement where we were playing. Shortly after, I heard my name being called from upstairs by a girl. I had figured it was one of the neighboring girls as it was common to have friends show up uninvited in my neighborhood. Everyone had an open door policy. The same girl I had seen before was standing at the top of the stairs. She told me to call over to my house and have my older brother come walk me home right now. We lived right next door. I didn't feel at all scared and just did what she told me right then and there. My older brother was furious and couldn't understand why I couldn't just do the 15-second walk home by myself. I have multiple instances seeing and hearing from her when in the presence of that older neighboring boy. always telling me it was time to go home or not leave my brother's side or be alone with him ever. I'm not sure why I'd never questioned or feared her. I was one stubborn child and hated when told what to do. At the age of 8, I was sleeping when I had gotten shaken awake. It was her. She told me I needed to be really quiet and go wake my dad up because someone was outside my window. I did what I was told and went to wake my dad. He got his gun out of the safe by his bed and instructed me to stay with my mom. A few seconds later, he started screaming at my mom to call 911. Sure enough, there was someone outside my window. When the officers were questioning me, I mentioned the little girl who freaked out my parents. I told them about the girl for the first time as well as all the times I've seen her. They took me in to see the bishop as I was about to get baptized and due to meet him anyway, and instructed to tell him all about her and when I've seen her, which started me on all types of church therapy bullcrap and vows of secrecy for getting a gift from God and blah blah blah. I saw her on the way home from my boyfriend's house one night in high school. I was driving at around midnight through a back road that had trees on all sides. I was coming up to an intersection where I had no stop signs, but the perpendicular road did. She walked out from the tree line in front of me, causing me to slow to a stop just before the intersection. As soon as I stop, a car blows through the stop sign just in front of me, scaring the crap out of me. I turned back to where she was, and she just smiled and walked back into the tree line. Had I not stopped, I would have been hit on my side of the car by the person who blew through the stop signs. I've seen her on many other occasions. Call it hallucinations, call it divine intervention, call it whatever you want, but I'm grateful for her. I've never seen her and been scared, more at peace, kind of like seeing an old friend. To those asking how I personally feel about it, the supernatural, to be honest, I really don't know and have been on a journey to find that out since leaving my religion. As mentioned below, I have had many encounters with mental health professionals, and it has been brought up that it's a possibility that my unconscious mind is forcing my conscious mind to acknowledge and respond to potential danger. I don't at all want to discount my own personal experiences of reality, or the experiences of others for that matter, and I'm grateful beyond words for the protection and warning I've got from her, whether it be on my head or not. But I also ask myself often, why me? Why do I get help and protection when so many need it more? And that is my inner struggle at the moment, not wanting to disregard or be ungrateful for my many experiences with her. But I also work in pediatric behavioral health and see a lot of horrible and devastating things that happen to the innocent by the hands of another. It's often hard to think of her as being a guardian angel or a divine intervention when there are so many people who needed protection and didn't get it. Case file number 1305, written by Chris351, Lost in the Loo. I was doing a walking tour, and right at the start there's a public toilet. It's one of those box cubicles in the street that you can put a coin in to unlock the door, and it washes itself after some time. Well, there was a queue of people who wanted to use the toilet before starting the tour, and I joined the queue. People are coming in and out. We get to the last 3 people in the queue, and an older lady is taking a really long time in the cubicle. We start to worry something happened to her, so I knock. No answer. I knock again and shout to her. No answer. I realize the green, vacant light is on. I put a coin in, open the door. The cubicle is empty. Everyone swears they saw this woman go in. There's a line of people standing by the door with their legs crossed waiting for their turn to use it. Surely someone would have noticed if anyone came out. Anyway, she disappeared. Case file number 1306, written by Greedy Finish 7422. The taxi trip that defies explanation. My little sister and I were heading home, and we were in a taxi with 3 other people, including the driver. We passed by my old street, and my sister said, "Hey, you used to stay there, remember?" I was like, "Yeah, we would have been home by now if I stayed there." Then we were both silent after that. Then the cab driver pulled over 5 minutes after, and he was like, "Well, we are at your stop." I didn't move because I didn't think he was talking to me, because my stop was like 20 minutes away. Then the other two passengers looked at me and my sister, and one of them was like, "Why are you guys not getting out? You're wasting time." That's when I realized they were talking about us. I was like, "No, this isn't our stop." Then the driver was like, "Then why did you tell me this was your stop?" I was very confused, and my sister was like, "No, we didn't." Everyone in the car insisted we did, and the driver said I even tapped him on the shoulder because I was sitting behind him. The two other passengers agreed that's what happened, even though both me and my sister didn't say anything about stopping. We got into a whole argument about it till we got off at our actual stop like 20 minutes later. And they called us liars and that we probably both forgot we said it or were pretending we didn't say it. But both me and my sister are 100% sure we didn't ask the driver to pull over. Creepy file number 123, written by Hin22. My scary experience with a lost neighbor. I sleep on the ground floor with my window open. I have two big dogs to protect me, so I'm not really worried. However, this night, I got woken up at 2 a.m. with my dogs growling. Then all hell was released as they both began to bark and snarl out the window. I looked at the window and to my horror, a person was trying to climb inside. Then, as my sleep-deprived brain tried to sort things out, I realized it was my upstairs neighbor who suffers with dementia. My dogs too realized who it was and stopped trying to eat her. I got to my wheelchair and started asking to go back home. She told me that she couldn't, that there was a man coming to hurt her. I tried persuading her that the man wouldn't know where she lived at all and she was safe. She still continued to try and climb through my window, pulling down my curtains and coming very close to pulling off the window frame. I told her she could come in through the front door, which wasn't really the safest thing for me to do, but I didn't really want her to fall and hit her head on the wall. But she wouldn't stop trying to climb through the window. After a while of trying to calm her, she suddenly turned around and walked away. I'm in a wheelchair, and there is no way I could have caught up to her. I went out, it was freezing mist outside, and she had a nightgown on, but I had no idea in which direction she had turned. I called the ambulance and told them an elderly lady with dementia had just walked off in the middle of the night. While waiting for them, I tried knocking on my neighbor's door to see if they had any contact numbers for her family. No one answered the door to me. Anyway, after an hour of waiting, I called the police to see if she had been found. Nope, she's not even being looked for. So I reported her missing again and waited. After a while of a whole lot of nothing, I called them again. They didn't notice my call, so they weren't looking for her still. I finally got through to a sergeant who took it very seriously, and in 5 minutes, I finally had police cars coming and looking for her. I was finally able to relax knowing it's in someone else's hands, finally, and tried sleeping on the sofa, since I have no curtains in my bedroom now. The family knocked on my door a few hours later and let me know that the neighbor was safe and thanked me for trying to make sure she was okay. I'm going to be honest, I was a mess. I was crying, just so relieved she hadn't wandered off into one of the fields and died. That was one of the most stressful nights ever. The neighbor moved out into a care home not long after, so I'm a bit safer from someone trying to climb through my window at night now, thankfully. Bonus file, written by Admiral Ferret, the ghostly roommate who wouldn't leave. I was in my college apartment, and my roommate had just moved out. Her room was directly across from mine with the living room between us. I had cleaned out her room and then closed the door. I left my bedroom door open and went to take a shower one night. My bathroom was connected to my bedroom. I also happened to leave the bathroom door open. While I was in the shower, I thought I heard a woman talking. I had never been able to hear my neighbors talking before, but figured they just happened to be talking in their bathroom, which shared a wall or something. When I got out of the shower, I was surprised to see a black void where there should have been bright white closed door of my old roommate's door reflecting in the moonlight. I figured I just forgot to close the door and went and closed it. The next night, I once again went to take a shower and left my room and the bathroom door open, but this time I checked to make sure the other door was latched and the front door was double locked. When I came back out, I once again saw the void with the door wide open. I slammed my door closed and locked that crap so fast. I convinced myself there was a logical explanation, so the next night I once again checked all of the doors and then closed my bedroom door. This time, I came out of the shower and my bedroom door was open along with the other door. I showered and slept with my bedroom door locked from that point on. I guess this took place over several nights home alone, and I may not have even been alone. Still the creepiest thing that ever happened to me though. Case notes file 1301, the missing 40 minutes. So this is almost a space-time reset, but just more space, because you remember, and I mean, you didn't describe the time exactly, but I assume that time really did pass like on clocks and everything. You didn't just reset in space-time, like the time itself, but also time was consistent. You had time to live through everything you describe happening. The album, the drive, the stuck in traffic, everything. But then your whole body and car was moved right back in front of your apartment building. How does that happen? I mean, aliens do that, but not in broad daylight where people are in, traffic everywhere. If aliens exist, I don't think they have perfect stealth technology. So I don't think this would be an alien event. No, I think you hit one of those really strange space-time portals that'll move you back in space-time, sometimes ahead, but it's just so weird because why would it send you back exactly to your apartment building? It would have to be tailored exactly for you. So who's creating these? That's just not some accident. The amount of positions your car could occupy if entering a random portal is virtually infinite. So why in front of your building? Someone engineered that specifically for you. Case notes for the creepy file number 121, the mysterious 4:30 a.m. knock. I think what actually happened is in a different universe, there was really a knock. You were hearing, like when we're dreaming, we're accessing information beyond simply our memories and the universe we occupy. There's little tendrils that branch out into beyond the thin membrane of our universe, and we're gathering information beyond this singular universe. And in those other universes, there's instances where indeed someone was knocking at 4:30 a.m. And your brain is constantly simulating battles and struggles that could potentially come about. It's probably because you're concerned about someone breaking in, where your husband is already gone, and indeed, as you say, it would be pretty easy to determine that, yeah, this person is alone after their husband leaves if someone is watching the house daily. You have a dog, get better locks. Take every precaution you can to safeguard your home. It's worth it. Protect yourself. Nothing wrong with that. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise, like protecting yourself is a bad thing. No. That's one thing I really didn't like about Canada. You actually have a duty to retreat there. You can't even protect yourself legally. Unless there's no other option. You have to flee your own home. I don't want to get political, but come on, that's ridiculous, in my opinion. Case notes for the bonus file, the super dog. So while I agree that the most likely explanation is that indeed, sadly, it's just some spirit messing with you, poltergeist spirit that's lonely, bored, prankster like myself, whatever. But more interesting and fun would be the idea that your dog, even though older in age, has mysterious access to bursts of power. A super dog in disguise, like he puts on a costume and in secret he's like Superman or Batman or something, going around protecting people from crime. That's really what we need. We need a dog Batman. I would love that. Someone make a movie about that. Now time for the quote of the day. The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest her or his patient in the care of the human frame, in a proper diet, and in the cause and prevention of disease. Thomas A. Edison. So say what you will about Thomas Edison, but I think this is so precise. More about what we should do ourselves. Doctors will maybe give you advice to lose weight if you're overweight and eat better, but what does that really mean, right? These days it's so hard. There's conflicting information in dietary science on virtually everything. One thing will say that meat is bad, the other will say that it's great for you. Others will say eggs are bad, they're great for you, and so on and so forth. Maybe the only thing that really doesn't have any conflicting information would be fruits. You just eat a lot of whole fruits. But I think you can boil it down to eat whole foods. And for me, it's very simple. Eat whole foods, walk a lot, get as many steps in as you can. You don't have to run, just walk. Low intensity, maybe swimming too, cycling. Just do some sort of daily physical activity. A lot of people have work from home jobs, sedentary office jobs, especially for people like that who don't work on their feet. It's very important to do active, low-intensity exercise, cardio. Just walk. That's it. That's what I do. I even just pace in my room sometimes watching a movie. You get your steps in, and it's fantastic for you. So whole foods and get good sleep. And maybe the getting good sleep is the hardest part, especially if you're on a tight schedule and you have to wake up by a certain time. I know that's one of the best things about running a YouTube channel and doing that for a living is I can sleep when I want and wake up when I want. So even though I naturally have a tendency to sleep later every night, that's okay. I still get my 7 to 8 hours in. And also just to say, you don't have to have 100% clean diet, like only whole foods. You can allow yourself some treats, but mostly whole food diet, and you'll be great. Question 1302. The Crossroads, where space-time flows differently. Isn't it weird how these portals sometimes just appear out of nowhere? In some cases, they seem so tailored, like the person who was not abducted, just ported back in front of their building, almost like a time reset, but time still had passed, so it was just a space portal right in front of their building. There's no way that's an accident. The odds would be like 100 zeros after the 1. Impossible for that to be a coincidence. But then you get cases like this, which are entirely random. So is this a case of like, there already are natural phenomena where there's space-time portals pocketed about, and also people or governments or aliens, some entity that has the ability to create tailor-made portals that can link two locations precisely, definitively? It seems to be the case, because sometimes they're random and sometimes they're ultra-specified. The only good thing I can say about this is that I haven't heard of it. I mean, I guess you would never hear about it, because actually, just thinking about it now, what if space-time portals often are related to missing 411 cases, where people are being ported around to random locations, sometimes maybe inside the planet? And of course, if you're ported into the planet, there's no escaping. It's not like the core, where you have a shell made of vibranium, unobtainium, or something that is stronger with pressure. No. And like a giant laser that can penetrate to the core. No. If you're in your car and you're ported into the core of the planet, you're just dead. You are instantly converted into materials. So yeah, it's possible that sometimes these portals go awry. Okay, so for the creepy file number 122. The night we'll never forget. This is so disturbing. Because these are real people. I don't think these were spirits. I think these really were just thieves that broke in. At least they didn't cause like physical harm. They saw this kid and didn't want to scare the kid or, harm the kid, and didn't want to harm your dad. They just wanted to take your stuff. Not that that's a good thing, but at least there was no physical harm. But I can't even imagine how terrifying that'd be. I'm lucky in that my whole life I've never I've had my bike stolen, but never like anyone breaking into a home. You can never feel safe again in your home, right? If that happens to you, it's such a violation. I don't even know if thieves understand how much of a violation that is. I wish people wouldn't do that, Respect other people's property as you want your own property to be respected. Pretty simple. Even when you're desperate. Okay, so that's for the bonus file. The day my vertigo foretold of a family tragedy. It really is that deep quantum connection. I think it's quantized. It's something at the fundamental layer of reality that you can link particles together. We know that. Maybe it's not a whole bundle of like our entire brain is linked to someone else. Maybe it is the soul that is linked. Whatever animates us to be alive, to be sentient, self-aware, can be linked between other people, other souls, to such an extent that you will experience physical pain or, in your case, vertigo, lightheadedness, if something happens to them. I just wish I understood how that link formed. Is it simply proximity or thinking hard about them for a long period of time, a lot of time? Or is it something related to emotion? You have to truly care about them deep down for that connection to form. I think it is proximity, but not just to form the bond. You can have proximity, form a strong bond, and then separate, and the link persists. It seems to. You have cases where people have this feeling, this pain by proxy, even separated by countries. So proxy is only necessary to form the connection, I think. Beyond that, strong emotions and everything. So if you have someone you care about, really think hard about them. Let those emotions flow, because then you'll be bonded to such an extent that you can save them, potentially, like you did with your grandfather. Man, that's amazing. And now time for the quote of the day. Knowledge is power. Sir Francis Bacon. This is the shortest quote I've ever had, but yes, knowledge is power, and it's exactly what I'm trying to do with this channel. To infuse knowledge of the whole multiverse into people's minds. And it's not always exactly clear on all the specifics. There's a lot of things that are unclear, like DOP, where an object comes into the universe, but sometimes creates a sound effect, a boom, with the air pressure, sometimes doesn't. There's oddities that aren't fully explained yet, but to me it's fascinating, and empowering is really the correct word. The more you know, the less there is to fear. And of course, like the other quote, Albert Einstein, you want to have some mystery left, so you don't want to know everything. It's that constant pursuit of knowledge and clearing away the mystery, only to hopefully have more mysteries pop up and have the cycle continue. That's life, and it's great. Question 1303. Wedding rings beyond this universe. So I really am wondering how many times it is where these DOP events, where things are exactly where you check them multiple times, can't be random. It has to be someone messing with us. And I mean, at least for me, I think it's a bit funny, but with wedding rings, maybe that goes too far. You don't want to feel like something that's special to you, that unique and irreplaceable, just disappeared. And then it's like gaslighting these people, right? Because you check this box, and most people don't know about glitches. So, I mean, if it happens to us, we would be annoyed, but we're like, okay, yeah, it's just DOP, it happens. Maybe it's an entity, maybe it's the universe spazzing out, who knows really, but it's not that surprising if it happened to us. But most people don't know about glitches. They have no clue. So to them, they would just think they're going nuts in a certain sense, or just like couldn't even see something right in front of their faces for years. So if it is an entity doing this, stop it, please. At least for things that are that important, Please. Wouldn't that be funny if like ghosts or entities or the developers are listening in to my own channel? This dude trying to figure things out and just piecing things together, but never having all the answers, all the pieces. Maybe that's the case. Case notes for the bonus file. Ghosts, gas leaks, and basement secrets. This would be very creepy indeed. And I've never lived somewhere where in my life we've moved around so many times growing up with my parents, and then after with my mom. I don't know, 15 times at least. We never went somewhere where there was an area that was off limits. I've heard of this happening sometimes, but that would be odd. I guess with good rent, it's not really a big deal. If you never went in there, I don't know if the landlord ever came over, but if there was a vehicle in there, a motorcycle, gas expires. So if you were there for months or years, it would be odd that it would just leak randomly like that. And it wouldn't even, I don't think there would be a smell, or maybe it would be a diffused smell. So I'm just wondering if maybe the landlord came in there sometimes. And maybe the landlord was responsible for some of these oddities. Maybe it wasn't just a ghost, or maybe there was no ghost at all, and it was just a weird landlord deliberately messing with you. Because it's not too hard to make lights flicker. Like if you have access to the circuit box, you just slightly push it back and forth. But the most disturbing thing would be hearing the thud of a body, and also hearing it being dragged around. Now maybe that was a spirit, reliving a certain memory that they had. Again, spirits are mostly bound to Earth, I think, by very strong emotions or events that happen that were just jarring, surprising. You could have multiple spirits bound together. Maybe someone who was abducted, a killer, and also the victim spirit that were just bound together, like rippling together in the space-time continuum. Eventually they'll fade, I think, but they're just reliving the event that was traumatizing or shocking to both of them. So I expect if you stayed there longer, you would hear the exact same thing, the thud and the body being dragged. If it is indeed a spirit. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a weird landlord. That's possible. But yeah, if it's a spirit, it's a repeating pattern. Now time for the quote of the day. No matter how old you are, there's always something good to look forward to. Lynn Johnston. Well, this again tethers back to mystery. If you live long enough, and you just do the same things over and over, then life will become dull, right? Because there's no mystery left in your life, none that you're pursuing. There's so much information and knowledge out there in the universe. And even if we lived 1,000,000 years, we wouldn't know it all. It's not that life ever gets boring. It's that people box themselves into a corner. Just stop living. Stop caring about the unknown, novel, the new. So you need to actively try to pursue those interesting new things that you never experienced before. So there's a show called Forever. It's kind of a crime procedural, but the twist is the main character is a mortician or, analyzes bodies and helps cops with details. but he can't die. Or rather, he does die, but if he dies, he just reappears hours later in a body of water, whatever's nearby. He's always reborn. It's almost like a phoenix, but instead of ashes, he's reborn in water. But he's lived for a few centuries, and he's like bored of life, nothing matters. But a few centuries, that's nothing. There's so many things, I mean, especially if you live that long, society is evolving with you. So there's always something new to experience and learn. I just think people discount immortality because they think they get bored and life is what we make of it. And there's more than enough sandbox out there to explore that you can't get bored unless you want to be. So don't get bored. Go try something new. You'll love it. Or maybe you won't, but that in of itself is good. You learn something new about yourself. Case notes for file 1304. The mysterious girl who protects me. So she was there with you your entire life, and there was a scene in this story where she was actually shaking you awake. And that exceeds the boundaries of what most spirits can do, like physically grabbing hold of you. And spirits can sometimes like physically touch things and move them, but it's very fleeting, and it's not the same thing as someone vigorously shaking you. So to me, this does mean that it was a guardian angel, or maybe even purely a manifestation in your own mind, connected to future buffered information or just the general pool of information that's out there. And your mind, your conscious mind, was taking that information and translating it into a way that you would connect with more easily, consciously, in the form of a person. Now, it could definitely be a guardian angel, but it does make you wonder, right? Why you? Why do some people have guardian angels? Or why do some people get to have a guardian angel in the moment they need it? My theory with that is guardian angels are not omnipotent, and they're not omniscient either. So they can have access to more knowledge than us and a wider field of view, but they're not always going to be there because they can't be. They can't be in every single place at all the time. And maybe not every person has their own guardian angel. Probably guardian angels try to occupy maybe a general area or different specific people, but not just one-to-one, is my guess. Case answer file 1305. Lost in a loo. Well, this is a simple case of DOP, but occurring to an actual human being. My guess is they just switch universes. Curious, it's almost always out of vision. How often do you get stories where people physically see someone fading out of existence? Almost never. Can I even remember a single story where someone, in plain sight, simply faded out of existence? But really, from their perspective, they just move universes. But from other people's perspectives, no. It always happens when we don't see it. I think this is probably built into the very code of the universe where multiversal transit is allowed, but it's never meant to be in view of anyone else. The observer effect. Canceling that transition. You have to be out of sight. So you get these things happening often in elevators and in any enclosed space. It does make you wonder though, what about on cameras? Some elevators do have cameras. Of course, you have to go back and actively want to look for it, so there was a case a long time ago, one of them, 3 years ago, where there was a little girl in a hotel elevator that got off on a different floor, or her floor, but it was in a different universe. Entirely different place. Then went back into the elevator and came back, and police were there. Whole investigation was called. And I think they checked the security cameras and they showed the girl disappearing. Or maybe she was just out of sight of the camera, I'm not sure, but yeah, makes you wonder if we could possibly catch this on camera. And now time for the quote of the day. I know, it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo. The ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were. And sometimes you didn't want to know the end. Because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad had happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come, and when the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. Those were the stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances of turning back, only they didn't. They kept going, because they were holding on to something. Samwise Gamgee. I wanted to throw this quote in here now because times are so bleak for a lot of people. You can lose hope easily. And it's good to connect with older stories where, of course, Lord of the Rings is the classic of all classics. There's so many good quotes buried in there, and this is one of those that you can connect to, think back to, because it's not just a story. Or rather, it is a story, but it's a story of life. This happens all the time. People face adversity. They don't always succeed, but damn, they keep going. That perseverance. I was also watching Rocky Balboa again. It's just that perseverance. It's not about how hard you can hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and get back up. So get back up, no matter what. There's no guarantee you'll succeed, but damn, you need to just get back up, no matter what. Case notes for file 1306. The taxi trip that defies explanation. So yeah, this one is completely baffling me. You have an event where somehow information was relayed incorrectly. And there's so many accounts of witnesses that were in the cab, other friends, the cab driver himself, that say you gave the address where the taxi driver originally stopped, but it wasn't the correct one. So how the hell could you and your friend have given the wrong address? It doesn't really make any sense, right? It's not a universal multiverse event, because if you were in that universe, you'd switch back, but in the first one, you would either have given no address or you would have given the correct one. So even if it was a multiversal transit, unless you were in a different universe when all this went down and didn't switch back until much later on, I suppose. Why did you stay there so long? Usually these events last very briefly, seconds, maybe minutes. Case file for the creepy file number 123. My scary experience with a lost neighbor. Yeah, this is just sad, honestly. There's not much else to say besides it being sad, because dementia is one of those diseases that doesn't really affect the person because they're not even aware it's happening, really. Or sometimes they are, and then other times they're not. When you lose your own mind, you don't even process that it's happening, or not in the same way other people are. It's a disease that hurts those around the person that it's happening to. It's something that bleeds out and harms everyone else around their inner circle, or even acquaintances, work colleagues, whoever knows it. Maybe even more pressing than curing cancer. Not that, both are insanely important, but dementia is one of those things that just encircles the person. It's like this cloud of miasma around them. Of course, entirely not their fault, but it's just so terrible. One of my friends, his grandma suffered from it, and you just have to watch them slowly deteriorate and not even remember who you are and lose track of reality. Case notes for the bonus file. The ghostly roommate who wouldn't leave. If there was a spirit there, why would they repeat this pattern of terrifying you? But is that really the goal? Because there's better ways to terrify someone if you're a spirit. I think they were trying to send a message but couldn't figure out a better way to send it. I don't know what the message was. Maybe leave the doors open for some reason? But yeah, I can't connect with what the reason or what the message was, but I think it's more than just trying to terrify you. Maybe just a lonely spirit? Maybe. And now time for the quote of the day. 1500 years ago, everybody knew that the Earth was the center of the universe. 500 years ago, everybody knew that the Earth was flat. And 15 minutes ago, you knew that you were alone on this planet. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. Agent K. Men in Black, of course. Fantastic movie. One of the earlier sci-fi movies that I saw. I don't know, my dad let me see it when I think I was 8, 9? I don't even remember. But it's been quite a while. I had seen it at home on VHS, not on cinema, but still, it still hits you, even though it's not as impactful as seeing it in the cinema. Still remember the roach in that. Oh my god. Nightmares. And actually Kay going inside the roach to blow it up from the inside. How you could never get that smell out of you. I couldn't do it. Maybe to save the planet I would, but damn. Imagine the dry cleaning bill on that. But as for the quote, the meat and potatoes of it, whatever we know is true today. Some of it could actually be true. There is objective truth. But always leave a little wiggle room, because you never know what you'll know tomorrow. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.